shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape. God is keeping track of every lie. There is no escape. Proverbs 19:5. I will tell the truth, for God will punish every lie. Proverbs 19:5. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape. A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape. Proverbs 19:5.
Hello and welcome everybody to a new video from Jörg, Joggler66, Hour of the Truth. Today we have Saturday, the 18th of August 2018, and I'm connected via this Skype machine on my computer with my brother Brett Norman over there in the United States of America, who I haven't been seeing all week because he is so busy working in that system trying to make ends meet that I can absolutely understand, and I have to do the same thing again also, which I don't like, but yeah, you know, we have to pay our bills, of course.
Yeah.
And yeah, because of that I didn't speak to Brett all week, so I did my thing, he did his thing, and now we are finally back together to come together for the fourth session of the reading of Simon Peter versus Simon Magus, which we are doing just in a second. But before, of course, I want to introduce Brett to the reading, ask him how he's been, and that I hope that he has had a wonderful week, and then we are going to prepare us for the next part of that reading. Welcome, Brother Brett.
Well, thank you. You're wonderful to be here. Such a blessing to read this along with you and discuss the various points, and thank you for inviting me, and I hope to be a blessing to your listeners as well.
And to your own listeners too. You probably
Yeah,
will upload
that's
this
right.
one on your channel too, right?
Absolutely right. Yes, I will. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm recording this with my OBS camera, so this is again a live video, for us at least. We are going to continue on page 13 of the PDF, for in case that you forgot where we took off last time. This is about the last paragraph, but one that I will retract to, because I have to mention something in that. And you probably still remember that in our last broadcast, Brett asked me the question about how Magus came to his name, Simon Magus, when the name Magus is not even mentioned in the Bible. And we came to the wonderful understanding, led by the Holy Spirit, by the paper that Brett sent us before about the meaning of Magus, that it had to do with sorcery, and that by that, of course, it was easy to identify Simon Magus as the one that he was, as that Simon the Sorcerer, who he was described at in Acts chapter 8, as we spoke about. But we took off in the last but one paragraph on the paper, where we read one point that should be noted, is there is a mixing of several religious ideas. This is one of the identifying characters of the beast of Revelation 13 that is identified as the Roman Catholic Church. Now, as you see now, and I have to even take a little higher percentage, so it is printed a little bit bigger, like this, 125% is better for you to see. As you see in what I just read, there is a little comment that I put in there into identifying characteristics. Why? Well, one of the very first works I ever did with the help of the Holy Spirit was in Nothing But the Truth with Michael Adams at the time in 2014 somewhere. And when that working together came to a close, we were busy with the work on 26 different points of identifying the Antichrist of the Bible, to make sure to everyone that only the papacy, nobody else even has a claim to it, that only the papacy is the biblical, historical, and prophetic Antichrist. And we made 11 videos on 26 points out of the Bible to make that very clear to everybody. So when the author says here, this is one of the identifying characteristics, it sprang into my mind, it jumped into my mind that I wanted to tell you about this playlist that I have that you can see here, because there is a complete video playlist with this subject only, the identifying characteristics, only that subject. Who is the biblical, historical, and prophetic Antichrist? Playlist Characteristics of Antichrist, and you can see the link here. This link will be provided in this paper when I put this paper up on the internet on archive.org. And of course you can find the playlist by just typing in Antichrist or characteristics in the search engine on my YouTube channel, and that playlist will pop up. Or you can go to the playlist and search for that playlist. Okay? But this is a playlist that I think has far too few views, and people need to see that because there are so many questions a lot of people have. They will be simply answered by just watching this, I think it's about 25 hours series of discussion in the playlist of characteristics of Antichrist. I didn't know Brett at the time because that's why he wasn't there, but I think that he saw all those videos, didn't you, Brett?
For the most part, there are a few that I have not seen, I'm sure.
Shame on you, brother.
But I've listened to hours upon hours upon hours of Hour of the Truth and Inquisition updates, so at least I have that under my belt.
Yeah,
Years ago. Yeah.
But for anybody who...
It's been 3 years now, Jörg.
Ah, yeah. I did these recordings in the end of 2014, the beginning of 2015, so it's almost 4 years.
That's right. I think I just encountered you on YouTube in the end of 2014?
No, 2015.
No. I mean, that's when I introduced myself.
Ah, yeah, okay. Yeah,
Encountered
that's
you
something
before
else.
I
Yeah.
introduced myself to you.
That's true, yeah.
Around that time, and you were with Michael Adams, and yeah, I just couldn't get over that, Jörg. How that comes about, but when you start to research these items, and you become friends with individuals, it seems to me there tends to be a type of agreement that people make with their studies, and if you're not the same mind set or the same goal, how can two walk together lest they agree?
Amos chapter 3 verse 3.
Yes. So it's that simple, really.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
And I lost some old friendships because of it, but I'm well suited for that. I mean, you have to confront it at some point. You can't get around it.
Well, the question is, Brett, what good is a friendship if it doesn't edify you in the Lord?
There we go. It's no good at all.
You see, this is why I have very few friends like you and
Mm-hmm.
like Tom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very careful to even add more to those. I think that's about it. I have a few
Right.
other acquaintances, don't get me wrong, brothers in Christ who I love, but the relationship that I have with you two guys is something that I don't have with anybody else, and something I don't want with anybody else. And these relationships, these two relationships, are so important to me because these relationships make me more assured in my studies in the Word of God, and that's what's it all about.
Mm-hmm. It is. I agree. That's what it's all about.
So, back to the characteristics of Antichrist. He says, one point that should be noted is there is a mixing of several religious ideas. This is one of the identifying characteristics of the beast of Revelation 13 that is identified as the Roman Catholic Church. Revelation chapter 13 verse 2 says, quote, Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard, his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion." Unquote. The 4 beasts used to make up the beast are the same 4 beasts Daniel saw in vision in Daniel 7. Now excuse me, I didn't have much time to prepare for the pictures, so I just have to put in Daniel in the search machine of my pictures that I can provide to you a picture of Daniel chapter 7, which I have somewhere here, because this is about the 4 beasts. I just have to look where that picture is, because this one is a very interesting one, even though it is it has a very bad resolution, so you probably have problems reading the text next to it, but that's the best that I can do for the moment. The 4 beasts in Daniel 7, and we have at least the picture next to here while I'm reading this. So the 4 beasts used to make up this beast are the same 4 beasts Daniel saw in vision in Daniel 7. As a matter of fact, Papal Rome inherited from each of these pagan empires some of their basic identifying traits that we still see practiced in this modern-day false system of religion, which calls itself the Roman Catholic Church. From Babylon, the lion, the papacy inherited a pagan priesthood. Yeah? From Babylon, the lion, the papacy inherited a pagan priesthood. From Medo-Persia, the bear sun worship. But let me make very sure that also the sun worship was a very profound part of Babylon, not only from Medo-Persia. Yeah? So I do not agree with the author when he says, when he splits it this way up, that he says from Babylon only comes the priesthood and from Medo-Persia comes the sun worship. No, 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 no. Babylon was the sun worship basis, actually. Okay? From Greece, then, the leopard, he got human philosophies. And from the dragon...
Jörg,
yeah?
I have to make a quick comment before
please.
we lose it.
Please.
Medo-Persia.
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought, what characteristics come from Medo-Persia then? If it's not Babylonian sun worship, what is it then?
Well, I haven't studied it in that depth. But
right,
the only
but
thing that I do not agree with the author here is that he says sun worship comes from Medo-Persia, not from Babylon. Because Nimrod was the first sun god.
There you
Nimrod
go.
still
Yeah.
is the
right.
reincarnated sun god on every 25th of December, the god of the unconquerable sun. So that's why I just mentioned that. What actually it took from Medo-Persia, I don't know. I cannot tell you.
I've always thought about that. There's got to be something very obvious that I just haven't thought of. Mm-hmm. Just in basic, in general, just a ballpark. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Just something to think about, I guess.
Yeah, we just have to study that a little bit deeper, or at least the people who are interested in those. To me, Brett, it is sufficient that I understand that we have here the 4 beasts of Daniel, and Daniel, with these 4 beasts, foretold us 4 empires that would come from the time in Babylon on. The lion, which was the head of gold in the figuratively spoken metal man. Mm-hmm. The bear, that was the shoulders and the arms of silver in the metal man, Medo-Persia. The leopard, that was the thighs and the belly of brass, which is the empire of Greece. And then the exceedingly dreadful, terrible beast, the 4th beast, which is a combination of those 3 plus something else. Because we understand from Bible prophecy that the 4th beast was diverse from all the other beasts. And what was that? What makes this 4th beast so diverse from all the 3 beasts before him? Do you know that? It is that
you're asking me, Jörg?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're the only one on the call here, Brett.
Well, it's It's
But I don't want to give you a hard time because I know it's still morning there. So when you're not, when your brain is not working that well yet, just tell me, no problem. I give you the answer, Brett. It's not a question and
Go
answer.
ahead, Jörg, please.
To me, the best understanding that I have of that is that in all the previous empires, Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece, we had, and even pagan Rome, also, we had a separation of church and state. We had the king on the one hand, and we had the priesthood on the other. Like it was also in Israel. For the priesthood, there was a complete nation taken apart only for being and providing the priesthood, the Levites, you know. But in this last beast, in papal Rome, this little horn that came out of the others, as we are going to speak about in our study, that is a combination of church and state, because the quote-unquote Pontifex Maximus, the quote-unquote Vicarius Filii Dei, is emperor and high priest in one person. And that makes this fourth beast so diverse from all the others.
That's right, Jörg. That's right. And you think about the CIA and all of the Knights of Malta and how they operate in their offices of government, and they are completely involved with the Vatican, both.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's shocking, actually. I think it scares the crap out of people here in the United States when they realize our CIA is actually part of this thing.
The CIA of the United States of America is like all the other intelligence agencies working for a foreign leader, a foreign emperor, in this case the Pope of Rome, and not for the President of the United States of America, like the BND or the MAD or the SD, and all these German things are not working for the German Chancellor, for the German government, but working for the government of Rome. And the Mossad is not working for the government of Israel, but for the government of Rome. And the successor of the KGB is not working for Russia, but is working for the, usurpator in Rome. Yeah. That's with all of these guys the same. And people do not like to face this fact.
Nope.
They just do not like to face this fact. Okay. I was just interrupted here by a message from Michael. I just wanted to ask him if he wants to come on, but he wrote earlier that he will be back at 5, so that's probably not yet. Anyway, let us continue here. The author says that, and from the dragon, pagan Rome, its power, seat, and great authority. That's how the author says it here, but from pagan Rome, he didn't get its power, seat, and great authority. He got from the dragon its power, seat, and great authority. Yeah. So what did the dreadful last beast, the pagan Roman system, get, or the papal system, get from the pagan Roman system? That's the same question that you were just asking yourself. What did he get from Medo-Persia? Right? We know he got sun worship from Babylon. He got the priesthood from Babylon. What did he get from Medo-Persia? He got philosophies and all the Gnostic teachings of man from Greece. But what did he get from pagan Rome? I don't know. This is maybe something to go into and on some other point, because it is not of any interest for the moment. The only thing that we have to understand is that these four beasts are, or these three beasts, speaking of the lion, the bear, and the leopard, are mixed in one last exceedingly dreadful beast, which then becomes Rome, the papal Rome. Daniel, with his vision of the four beasts, does not make any distinction between pagan Rome and papal Rome in the beast form. He just calls it the fourth kingdom, the fourth beast. Yeah? We have to understand this, so we don't have to make distinctions between things where are no distinctions. Daniel said the first kingdom will be Babylon, the second one will be Medo-Persia, the third one will be Greece, and the fourth will be Rome. It is just that special in Rome that Rome actually is two-faced. Pagan Rome until about 600 AD, and then Papal Rome from 600 AD on, the 7th century on, up to today. Okay? But there's no distinction in the beast for these two kingdoms. And it is, even though we make the distinction of pagan Rome and papal Rome, it still is one kingdom, yeah? With two faces. Pagan the first, papal the second. But that doesn't take anything away of the prophecy of Daniel. And therefore we have this melting together, but also it has its own characteristics. And one of the own characteristics of this last beast is that when this pagan Rome becomes papal Rome, there is a merging, a fusion of the political and the spiritual power in the form or in the person of the Pope. And that's the important thing that we have to keep from reading this little sentences that were meant as an introduction and gonna take us almost half an hour.
Yeah.
From this, the author continues here, from this Simon Magus, who was well versed in all of these abominable doctrines and false system of worship, created the early Catholic Church. He took a little bit from Babylon, a little bit from Medo-Persia, a little bit from Greece, a little bit from pagan Rome, and was founding the early Roman Catholic Church in Rome. These abominable doctrines can be traced back to the very beginning through Simon Magus. Now, this is a picture of Simon Magus here on the right. Even though there is only one event that was recorded by Luke, speaking of Acts chapter 8, it would not be unreasonable to assume that Simon had heard the apostle on several occasions, and not only the apostle, but the apostles, plural. Yeah? He likely also spoke with many of the new converts of the new church. It could be said that Simon Magus had great interest in spiritual matters, and most likely was very well versed in both Jewish teaching and that of the new Christian church. Simon had mixed Judaism, early Christianity, and Babylonian Greek paganism into one religion, and appointed himself as the leader, which makes him the precursor of the Pope, right? Just a second. Lena.
That's right.
Hey! Lena! I just have to tell my dog here to stop a little bit. Doing crazy. Sorry. So Simon had mixed Judaism, early Christianity, and Babylonian Greek paganism into one religion and appointed himself as the leader. Here we see the well-documented mixing of religions from several historical sources and the Bible itself. Now, what did Simon Magus do with this new religion? Did Simon stay in Jerusalem as the head of his own little cult? What were his plans for this new mixing of religions? History shows that Simon Magus did not stay in Jerusalem but moved to Rome. It is also well recognized that the religions of Asia by Greek and Roman times had also passed to the West. By the 1st century, the mystery religions of the Babylonians were centered primarily in Rome. At that time, Rome was the chief city of the world. With Rome as the center of the world, it would only make sense that Simon Magus would move to Rome to spread his new religion, a mixture of pagan beliefs and Christian doctrine. And of course, I add here, we also have to understand that the Pope of Rome elevates himself above all the other bishops of all the churches in the whole world. So that means that Rome was always playing an important point, because according to Daniel there is no other kingdom but the kingdom of Rome, from the time that even the time before Jesus was born until the time that Jesus returns. The last kingdom on this earth, the last man-made kingdom, is Rome. Therefore, it is absolutely imperative for Simon Magus to go there. You have to be in the center to reign. You cannot reign from the outside, you have to be in the center. And this is the reason why Rome always opposed itself against all the other bishops and claimed always to be the quote-unquote bishop of bishops. A title that was first taken then by Innocent III in 606. But that's another story to go into some other time. But the point is just that we have to understand that Rome always had a leading role. And because of that leading role, it was absolutely vital, of course, for Simon Magus to go to Rome. Because as a leader, you go there where the leaders, right? You don't lead from Constantinople when you have the power center in Rome. Then you have to be in Rome, and that's where he did go and why he got there. This is what the author wants to share with us here. Yeah? At that time, Rome was the chief city of the world, even though Latin was not the chief language spoken at the time. That still was Greece, by the way, for many people who do not know that. But with Rome at the center of the world, it would only make sense that Simon Magus would move to Rome to spread his new religion, a mixture of pagan beliefs and Christian doctrine. And by the way, why should Paul write his letter to the Romans and warn the Romans of apostasy within that church, if that apostasy was not there in Rome already? As we can read in 2 Thessalonians, where he says, the mystery of iniquity doth already work. It worked already out of Rome, because we know that the mystery of iniquity that Paul speaks of in 2 Thessalonians speaks of the Antichrist, the coming Antichrist. Where was that working? In Rome. Okay? So, Simon Magus' move to Rome is noted in several historical writings. We don't only have the Bible that we can rely on in this regard, we even have several historical writings. Even though we are not going to mention all of these in our study here, you can look those up for yourselves. And the most important one, or the most, how do I say this, the most famous one, is probably that one where I have a picture of here. So when I show you the picture, you know that it is very easy for everybody to do their own research on the internet and look that up for themselves. This is according to the legend, yeah, and this is what the author actually tells us here. Simon Peter's move to Rome is noted in several historical writings, and these historical writings are very often based on legends, yeah? And according to the legend, in order to prove to the people of Rome that his powers were greater than Peter's, talking about the Apostle Peter, the magician Simon Magus levitated himself high over the forum. You can see him flying there. He levitated. That's no problem for people to get levitated when they are possessed with demon spirits. But why is this a legend? No, I'm not going to ask Brett. I understand that it's quite early there. I'm going to ask all of you, and I'm going to have to answer that myself. Why is this a legend? Because Peter was never in Rome! So when they put in this legend picture Paul who sits there or kneels there praying, and Peter who lies there on the ground praying for the Holy Spirit to get Simon Magus out of the air, back down to the ground, then of course this must be a legend, because Peter never was in Rome. He could have never prayed this way for Simon Magus to stop his elevation sorcery there. Huh? That's why it's a legend. But except from this legend, of course, we know that there are several historical writings that prove that Simon Magus was in Rome. His goal, as stated by historical records, was to create a universal church. Religion. What's another word for universal?
Catholic.
Right, Catholic. A little side note that many are aware of is the meaning of the word Catholic. The word Catholic means universal. The word Catholic, Katholikos from Katholou, throughout the whole, i.e. universal, occurs in the Greek classics, in the philosophical writings of Aristotle, Socrates, and Plato. Yes, the correct meaning of the Catholic Church is the universal church, infested in the language that was ruling at the day of the pagan Roman Empire, which was Greece, or Greek. Simon can be classified among the major group of so-called Christians, and Simon called himself such, as there are many calling themselves today Christians, called by Harnack the quote, decidedly anti-Jewish groups. They advanced much further in the criticisms of the Old Testament and perceived the impossibility of saving it, that is, the Old Testament, for the Christian universal religion. They rather connected this universal or Catholic religion with the cultist wisdom of Babylon and Syria, as we can read in Harnack's A Church Historian, Volume 1, page 246.
Does this sound familiar? Just throw the Old Testament out,
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything anyway, it's all just allegory. Whatever, right?
When Justin Martyr wrote in 152 AD his apology, and Justin Martyr is by many people recognized as a quote-unquote church father, let me just tell you that he never was a church father. The sect of the Simonians appears to have been formidable. Simonians, what is that? Well, Simonians are the guys who followed Simon Magus. Simonians. Appears to have been formidable, for he speaks 4 times of their founder, Simon. And we need not doubt that he identified him with the Simon of the Acts. He states that he was a Samaritan, adding that his birthplace was a village called Gitta. He describes him as a formidable magician and tells that he came to Rome in the days of Claudius Caesar, which was about 45 AD, and made such an impression by his magical powers that he was honored as a god, a statue being erected to him on the Tiber between the 2 bridges, bearing the inscription Simuli Deo Sancto, the holy god Simon, as we can also read in the Catholic Encyclopedia under article Simon Magus. That article in the Roman Catholic Encyclopedia from the 1913 edition that I have here is a lengthy article, very interesting, but I want to advise everybody to do their own studies on that, and we cannot include that into the reading here because that would take hours just to read that little article. But in that article it is stated, and not only there in the Roman Catholic Church, and please understand why I'm telling you this, because when there are historical facts that point to the papacy as what it really is, she always denies it. She has to. Huh?
Yeah.
So in this Roman Catholic Encyclopedia and also in other places it is said, but the statue, that is not sure that was Simon Magus. It was probably even taken from the Sibyllines. And the Sibyllines are the other gospel that Rome is built upon, pagan Rome is built upon. Do your own research in that regard, but I don't believe any of that BS. Rome always points away when some kind of proof is pointing to them as the culprit. They always point away and say, no, that was something else.
Or I don't say figure out some ingenious way of explaining it. Yeah.
Yeah, they are never short of words, right?
The devil is in the details, yeah.
Yeah, and Rome is never short of words with all the casuistic
No.
and with all the casuistry and sophistry that they are using.
And
Yeah,
yeah, the whole entire Catholic encyclopedia.
yeah,
Perfect example.
It's sophistry from the first to the last letter. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yes, such a classic, especially the old one, right?
Yeah. But anyway, this statue called Simoni Deo Sancto, meaning the Holy God Simon, would make much sense that it was there between the two bridges that were existing at the time in Rome on that little island where that statue was erected, that it was in regards to their quote-unquote God. Because Simon Peter, in that regard, was the very first quote-unquote Pope, right? And the Pope is God on earth, right? So Simon was the God of, or the in flesh manifested God of Rome at the time. Anyway, Hastings' Dictionary of the Apostolic Church, Volume 2, page 496 states that there is, quote, very slight evidence on which to reject so precise a statement as Justin makes. A statement he would scarcely have hazarded in an apology addressed to Rome, where every person had the means of ascertaining its accuracy. Did I say that right? Ascertaining?
Yes,
Okay,
that's
thanks.
right.
If he made a mistake, it must have been at once exposed, and other writers would not have frequently repeated the story as they have done. We see this quote from Justin Martyr and from Hastings' Dictionary of the Apostolic Church that Simon Magus was in Rome about the year 45 AD. This is further stated by his birthplace, a village called Gitta. It is also stated that Simon Magus was honored as a god due to his magical demonic powers that were witnessed. Simon Magus didn't have any magical demonic powers. He was possessed by fallen angels that were exercising their power through him. But he did not have any power. He was a possessed man. That's what you have to understand, dear listener. Only when you give up your own spirit and you give you into the complete possession of another spirit, in this case an evil spirit, this spirit can work through you and can do the things that on the outside seem to give you power, but actually it is the spirit that is in you that has the power and that exercises these powers. Simon Magus maybe was a quote-unquote sorcerer in that regard, that he knew how to invoke other spirits, but he did not have any power but the power the dragon through the fallen angels gave him. That is something that we have to understand. Right, Brett?
Yes, Yerk, I just got to say a little something about this word sorcery and how it relates to our 20th/21st century ideologies, and being a musician myself. And, like this Simon Magus, I think of him like the ancient rock star, possessed by the devil, having this ability to elevate himself above others. And, it just shows you that, the people that require a physical manifestation of God have a tendency to gravitate towards these ideologies that exalt human pretensions above divine ones, I've noticed. And that's kind of the problem with the music, is that it often will draw people to man and negate God entirely. And, that's why I have this problem with music.
So in other words, you are telling us that Simon Magus was the Michael Jackson of the first century.
There we go. Good example. Yes. Well, yeah, vaguely. I'm not entirely sure of that, but use your own discernment. But for me, that fits pretty close.
That was the gist of your message, I think.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, Michael Jackson was very, very huge. That's right.
Well, the only person who was close to as huge as Michael Jackson was is Elvis Presley.
Right. That's right.
As individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there were maybe musical groups with more influence. Probably groups that are even existing today, like the Rolling Stones.
Oh, and the Beatles and all
the
this.
Beatles don't exist anymore today.
No.
They're already dead for 40 years.
But
Almost
they
50.
still had a huge impact.
Yeah, sure. But that's not the point. But
No.
as an individual, I think it were only these two, Elvis Presley and Michael Jackson. The most outstanding musical figures in quote-unquote human history.
Yeah.
If I may say so.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, shall I continue?
Please do, Jörg. Thank you.
Simon only used the name of Christianity to bring about his own desired ends. Please. Simon only used the name of Christianity to bring about his own desired ends.
The ends justify the means.
Yeah, and the pagan
Sure
Roman Empire only uses the name of Christianity to bring about his own desired ends. And Satan only uses the Roman Catholic Church to bring about his own desired ends. This is such an important sentence that you can so easily oversee in this text. It is of profound importance. Simon only used the name of Christianity to bring about his own desired ends. Christianity is abused in every way, shape, or form you can even think of. By people like Simon Magus, by the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church, by Protestant quote-unquote church leaders. I mean, what is that with people like Kenneth Copeland and Joel Osteen and Benny Hinn and all the other guys? I don't want to name them all, all demonic figures. What are they doing? What are all of them doing? They are using the name of Christianity to bring about their own desired ends. And what are their own desired ends? Well, that what is the same end that Satan has. That is to be worshipped of the inhabitants of the earth.
To deceive the people.
To deceive the people that when they think they are venerating the God of the Bible, they are actually venerating Satan. Without them knowing, because the most
too,
sorry to interrupt you, but most of the people, Brett, most of the people would never openly worship Satan.
No.
But that's why he has to get them to be worshipped in disguise. That's the point that I wanted to make. But please finish your point. I interrupted you there. I didn't mean that.
Yeah, the king of crypto. Yeah, I think of that term. Oh, yeah. Well, Jörg, it's... I'm still waking up over here, so please continue. I lose my train of thought so quick.
No problem. But I hope that our dear listeners understand the importance of the sentence that we were just reading. Simon only used the name of Christianity to bring about his own desired ends. How many people don't we know and don't we see today in the world that we are living in 2018 who only use the name of Christianity, who only use the name of God, who only use the name of Jesus Christ to bring out their own desired ends. The Dictionary of Religion and Ethics says that Simon was, quote, a false messiah who practiced magical arts subsequently attempted by the aid and with the sanction of Christianity to set up a rival universal religion, which is apostolic Christianity. volume 11, page 514, to set up a rival universal religion to apostolic Christianity. From these historical accounts we see that indeed Simon Magus was in Rome, and that indeed Simon Magus was the head of his own church, quote-unquote, universal Catholic. In many of these accounts we also see that Simon Magus was also considered by many to be God. Does not that fall into place that the first pope, aka Simon Magus, was considered to be God? There are several places in the Bible that show that the Church of Rome would commit the sin of blasphemy and demand worship from men. Revelation 13, Daniel chapter 7 verse 11, Revelation chapter 14 verse 11, and more to come. In John chapter 10 verse 33, the Bible clearly gives the definition of blasphemy. Quote, a mere man claiming to be God. This is what Jesus was accused in John chapter 10 verse 33 of. You being a mere man claiming to be God, because we don't stone you for good works, but for blasphemy we stone you. This is the context that this is taken out of, right, Brett?
That's right.
Or as far as I remember the Bible in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
The list of blasphemy coming from the papacy would fill volumes of books. Yeah, it would fill whole libraries.
Well, Jörg and I both have a little bit of that library. Oh, yeah.
Here are just a few examples. Quote, the Pope is not only the representative of Jesus Christ, but he is Jesus Christ himself, hidden under a veil of flesh. The Catholic National, July 1895. Here are some incredible claims that appear in a Roman Catholic dictionary by Lucius Ferraris entitled Prompta Bibliotheca Canonica, Volume 6, pages 438-442 under the article of Pope. And the Catholic Encyclopedia 1913 edition, Volume 6, page 48, speaks of this book as a veritable encyclopedia of religious knowledge and a precious mine of information.
Yeah, I've got that one too.
How about the Prompta Bibliotheca Canonica by Lucius Ferraris? You got that?
This is the Roman Catholic dictionary is spoken of at the top of the sentence here. I have it. Yeah, I do.
Here are some incredible claims that appear in the Roman Catholic dictionary by Lucius Ferraris entitled Prompta Bibliotheca Canonica. So you got that, Prompta Bibliotheca Canonica. That's the book referred to here.
I don't know if that's the title of it. Let me go grab it.
Yeah, that's the one that is mentioned here, you know. It's not about just a Roman Catholic dictionary. It is this, a special one, Prompta Bibliotheca Canonica, which is the library of the canons. When you translate them into English.
Okay, this is maybe something different.
Yeah, just to make sure. And the Catholic Encyclopedia 1913 edition. That one you have. Okay?
Sorry.
That one you have. And that one I have too. Anyway, it speaks of a veritable encyclopedia of religious knowledge and a quote-unquote precious mine of information. How about the Bible being a precious mine of information in the first place? Huh? What do you think about that? Quote, the Pope is of so great dignity and so exalted that he is not a mere man, but as it were God and the Vicar of God. Unquote. That's what you can read in the Prompta Bibliotheca Canonica. Quote, the Pope is as it were God on earth, sole sovereign of the faithful of Christ, chief King of kings, having plenitude of power, to whom has been entrusted by the omnipotent God direction not only of the earthly, but also of the heavenly kingdom. Again, of course, speaking of the keys that Saint Peter allegedly received from Jesus Christ, as we can... Oh no, I don't have that picture prepared. There is no doubt that Simon Magus was called a god. Neither is there doubt that the papacy claims that the Pope is God on earth. The list of blasphemies of the papacy are too numerous to count. There's only one who can count them, and that's God, and he will lay that account when the papacy is judged in the day of judgment, I can assure you. There are several historical accounts that Simon Magus was called and claimed to be God. We can even see this preserved in history with the very status that was spoken of by Justin Martyr. In 1574, excavators found a fragment of marble on an island of the Tiber River with the inscription Simoni Sanco Deo Fidio. Simoni, Holy Simon, Trusted God, if I translate that correct, or faithful God. Deo standing for God and Fidio for faithful. You know, faith. Fide, sola fide. That's where that comes from. That's the root of the word. Simon, Sanco, holy, Deo, God, Fidio, faith. Okay? That's how you can translate even simple Latin words without ever having studied Latin, because I didn't ever do that. Some interpret this as referring to a Sabine deity, as I told you, from the Sibyllines. It comes from Sabine, Simo Sancus, but most likely it was part of the statue Justin Martyr described as having been dedicated to Simon Magus. This is the part that I spoke of earlier, when I told you that people were saying that the statue was venerated for the Sibyllines, the Sabines, the Sabine deity, which were the basis of the pagan Roman religion. Here's the transition of Simon Magus being considered God and the first pope, and the big mistake that many confuse Simon Peter with Simon Magus. The next step to change Simon Magus to Simon Peter was with the title of a god by some of his followers. What is another name or title for a pagan god? Well, surprising as it may sound, it is a well-known fact among students of ancient religion that the chief pagan gods worshipped in the early civilizations were generally known by the name or title Peter. Now that would make Simon Magus also be formally known as Simon Peter. The pagan priests of the mystery religions are called pators or Peters. They had the power to interpret the heathen mysteries. This is further brought out by Bunsen, a very famous historian, in his hieroglyph, page 455, where he shows that the Egyptians, as the Bible also indicates, call their interpreters or priests Peter, P-E-T-R, Peter, that is Peter. Remember in this regard what Tapasauci wrote in Rulers of Evil on this subject, claiming that word P-E-T-R, Peter, as we see here written in this document, means firstborn and refers to Cain. Anyway, I think Cain and Simon Magus had a lot in common.
Yeah.
Notice some references to these sacred Petras found throughout the pagan world. At the Temple of Delphi in Greece, that is where the Grecians kept their gods in the temple of Delphi, and also where the oracle was speaking. The oracle of Delphi is maybe an expression that you've heard of earlier. At the Temple of Delphi in Greece, the chief object in the ritual was the Petra. You can read that in Pausanias, Book 10. At the Acropolis in Athens, Euripides tells us the niches were held, which held the idols, were called the Petrae. The niches in the rooms, little corners in the room where the idols were held, means where the statues of the different gods were placed in, and those were called Petrae. It is well known that even the sacred book which was used in the celebration of the Eleusinian mysteries was entitled Book Petroma, Peter Roma, Peter's Book. See Potter's Iniquities, Volume 1, page 356. Remember that the pagan temples were also called after the Peters. The temple at Elis in Greece was called Petron, Lycrophon. Pytho at Delphi was called Petresa. The oracle temple dedicated to Apollo in Asia Minor was called the Patrara, and the oracle there was called Patarios. Eos means person, who, or the one. We read this in Lampriere's Classical Dictionary on page 438. Also Petrae, an ancient town where Diana had a temple, and the oracle of Achaia was called Patra. Examples are too numerous to mention, but this should be enough to show that the name Peter, or its variants, figured very high in every phase of pagan worship. These Peter stones and temples were found all over the ancient world. There is in the history of every oracular temple some legend about a stone, some reference to the word Petra. We can read in Bryan's work on page 362. The world and history is littered with many examples of the term Peter used as a title for a god. I believe this leaves little doubt that the title of Peter would be given to someone that claims to be and was seen to be a god. There are just too many instances that this title has been given and used in historical accounts. This change from Simon Magus to Simon Peter is how the good apostle was mistaken to be the first pope of the Roman Catholic Church. If there is doubt that people would mistake a person as being a god, we must remember that the apostle Paul and Barnabas were also mistaken as gods. In Acts chapter 14, verses 11 through 12, we read, quote, "And when the people saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying in the speech of Lycaonia, 'The gods are come down to us in the likeness of men.' And they called Barnabas Jupiter and Paul Mercurius, because he was the chief speaker." Unquote. Even to this day, the Roman Catholic Church says that the tomb of St. Peter is under the altar of the Basilica in Rome. Quote, "Only the actual vault itself in which the body lies is no longer accessible, and has not been so since the 9th century. So that's 1100 years. There are those, however, who think that it would not be impossible to find the entrance and to reopen it once more. An unanimous request that this should be done was made to Antichrist Pope Leo XIII by the International Archaeological Congress in 1900, but so far without result. So far, well, speaking of it, in 2018, because it has not been done. Let me just highlight this here. And then I have to look another little picture up that I already showed you in the previous videos that we were speaking about, the Simon Magus, Simon Peter mix up. And that picture is just here. No, of course. Where is this now? Here. This picture. Remember? Peter's tomb recently discovered in Jerusalem. Now, what does that do to the quote-unquote hypocrisy, or hypothetically stating that Peter's tomb is in Rome, when they now found it all of a sudden in Jerusalem? You know, I don't give too much about this Peter's tomb found in Jerusalem, as I don't give anything for this quote-unquote Peter's tomb found in Rome. I think that if a person like Peter, who lived almost 2,000 years ago from the time that we are living in right now, and they still can find this one tomb, I don't believe any of it. I don't believe in relic worship. And that's what this tomb finding actually all is about. Relic worship, idol worship, and that is what Roman Catholicism is all about in the very first place. And this is why we're going to end this reading right here, reminding you that wherever they say, here's a tomb or there's a tomb, Jesus Christ said, whenever one says, here is Christ or there is Christ, don't believe it. With the tombs, with these relics, the same thing. Don't believe it. But now I want to turn over to Brother Brett for some final conclusion for him for this video. Please, brother.
Oh, thank you, Jörg. It's wonderful to have this study and to go into the fine details of why Peter was never in Rome. And I just hope that this series of videos will reach those that are under the yoke of Rome right now today, because they're the very ones that need this information that has been so cleverly kept from them, and the faith that comes to overcome the tyrannical kind of deception that has been really promoted both in church and state teaching, you know. And I think of that section of Matthew, was it chapter 24, where or is it 23, where Jesus said, call no man your father and call no man rabbi, which means teacher. Call no man teacher.
I think that was Matthew 23.
Yes, Matthew 23. So very important that we need to let the Holy Spirit be our teacher.
Verse 9, Brett.
Yes,
and call no
you.
man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father which is in heaven. Neither be ye called masters, for one is your master, even Christ. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. This is Matthew chapter 23, verses 9 through 11. Yeah.
Excellent, Jörg.
Yeah, I just did a recording on Matthew 23, 24. It's still a little bit in the back of my head.
I bet it is, and I've been listening to it, and I'm working on a video right now with it, actually. So
looking forward to see that.
Wonderful, wonderful little video. It's going to take some time, though, because it's starting to evolve into something that I never expected.
Well, it's evolving. It's not mutating, so that's good.
Right. Yeah, mutants aren't particularly wanted, are they?
No, but that's of course what the evolution theory wants to make us believe, that mutation is a good thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, Brett,
rather it's more of a synergy, you know, bringing different aspects of this delusion that we've been trained into since our youth, you know, and breaking that with Scripture, breaking the curse that we've been put under through the natural man, you know, and coming through with the Scripture and bringing it right back to the glory of God. That's what this is all about. It's not our glory, it's for Jesus.
Only for
all right.
him.
Yep, amen. And let's end it on that note.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for your contribution, Brett, and I thank everybody for watching and listening and commenting on this. I hope that everybody is edified with the study, and of course set up to do their own studies in this regard, to actually discover that the Apostle Peter never ever was in Rome, and that the only Peter that we see in Rome is Simon Peter, is Simon Magus, is Simon the Sorcerer, who we get acquainted with in the book of Acts, chapter 8. And that I hope, and Brett too, so we hope that we made the point clear that even through different historical writings and legends, it is manifested that Simon Peter was in Rome, but with that Simon Peter is not meant the Simon Peter of the Bible, Cephas, but is meant Simon Magus, the one from Gitta, the Samaritan, who was mentioned in Acts chapter 8. That is very important, because this is the root of apostasy of the Roman Catholic Church that we are uncovering here, that we are unveiling for a lot of people, to get them, to show them the truth that is hidden behind the curtain, so that they see through the deceptions and the lying deceivableness of all that the Roman Catholic Church puts out for us here. Do your own studies. Do your own studies in history, and first of all do your own studies in the Bible, the 1611 King James Bible, the only true preserved Word of God in 2018 in the English language in the world. That is the Bible to get, that is the Bible to have, because when you have the inerrant Word of God, you have the love of the inerrant God. You have the love of the omnipotent, of the Creator God of this world, and of Jesus Christ, who is the only way to save you. As he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and nobody comes to the Father except through me. You don't need a quote-unquote Peter in Rome. You do not need a Pope in Rome. You don't even need the priest of your church or the pastor of your church. The only thing you need is Christ, and Christ alone. Until next time, Maranatha.
The fool has said in his heart there is no God. They are corrupt, they have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good. The fool has said in his heart there is no God. God tells us what to do. Some obey, some resist. The fool says in his heart that God does not exist. This is how the foolish justify the evil they have done. It takes a fool to say there is no God. Psalm 14 verse 1. The fool has said